Hey everyone, it is Friday, September 3rd, and it's another weekly real estate update. I'm Mark Newstater with eXp Realty, joined back in North America in the Calgary area. Jayden Bax, welcome back.
Thank you very much. This is the nicest day that I've seen in a long time. I suffered through a month of rain, and I'm very happy to be back in God's country here in Alberta.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, so your weather was not great in Europe, from what I understand.
No, it wasn't great, but we had a great time. But it's just really fortunate to live where we do. Come back home and be excited to come back home. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we got a big update today. It always is at the beginning of the month because we have our weekly stats and then just a brief overview of what happened in August. So let's get right to the weekly stats and I just find this so fascinating, what is going on in our market. Because we really have had a yo-yo, kind of a bit of a yo-yo summer, but we're really starting to our fall market is, in my opinion, I think it's starting. So look at those new listings down again this week for detached at 273 with 313 and 107 solds, giving us a total of 420 on the sold plus pending for a difference of plus 147. So yeah, I think we're trending upwards again. The realtors that I talked to, I had a listing that I put live in Parkland and it sold on the first day. So, I think it's starting to happen again. We'll see kind of what shakes out here. If we here's what has to happen. When I put my mouse over this number has to go up for us not to be in such a seller's market. If we don't see this number go up, if our differences are still, where they are, we're going to continue to see a seller's market because when we go to our August stats, we're still at, just over 2 months of inventory on the detached side of things. So let's get to those total detached listings this week, a total of 2,559. Look at the downward trend here in total numbers of listings. Kind of holding around 29, 2,800, 27, 26. So again, this happens in summer. Our detached listings, they sell and they don't get replenished because people are on holidays. They don't want to list their home in summer. But what we saw through summer is there were still a ton of sales. We're over 300 a week through summer. 237 price reductions. That's a pretty big jump. But we're in the early stages of monitoring that stat, so we don't have some great data and track record on that one. Total of 5711 listings. Look at that number down almost right around 400 from last week. So good activity really on semi-detached on all the segments. The challenge still with apartment condos is sales have actually probably haven't been this high for a long time, but there's still so much inventory. And that's the difference between detached and apartment condo, right? That 273, 307, we're never above our sales. And that just continues to create downward pressure or upwards pressure on the pricing, downward pressure on inventory. All right, so that is this week. Let's take a look at August now. And we are going to share our August summary. If I could just click on the right button. All right, dead air. Never good to have dead air. All right, so here's August. So this is just a basic summary. I'm gonna verbalize a couple of things as well. But sales and new listings, not surprising, trended down from July. We had about a 10% gain in pricing from July 2020. Like I mentioned, we're just over 2 months of supply. It varies so much. This is overall citywide. There are areas of the city that are higher, some that are lower. 2 months of supply. Days on market, check that out. 37 days on market. It was 33 in July. But if you look at August, and that's actually down 54% from August 2019. Back in 2019, our average days on market in August were 81. 81. Which is it's hard to actually believe that, but that is the stat. So a couple other things I would say, yeah, it's very much community by community driven. Our sales were very strong again. Obviously, they trended down from July, which is not a huge surprise because now we were in the thick of summer holidays and things like that. But I know from a personal perspective, as I mentioned, the listing I had that went live on Wednesday and was sold by 11 o'clock on Wednesday night is a good example. And that was in an $850,000 price point. Difference, it's all about supply and demand. There's not a lot of homes in that area that are fully renovated. This home was a complete gut job, quote unquote, and full renovation. So what does this all mean to you? There's still, again, we say this every week. If you're selling right now, man, you're in a good position. As long as you're priced right from the beginning, you're in a great boat traditionally for most areas. But again, if you want a community by community breakdown, or just give me your community, I'll shoot you a quick email or text about what's going on there. So that is my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And on my side of things, I'm really seeing the mortgage rates preparing for this fall market that you're talking about, right? So already seeing really, really attractive quick closes. If you have the desire to get into a new home within the next 45 days, I'm seeing 1.84 on a 5-year fixed. Still lower than that on 4 and 3 years, and those 1.6, 1.7 and a half kind of range. And that's with less than 20% down. If you're looking at that 20% down or more, we're still kind of looking at around that 2.24. But I suspect, like, I'm starting to see more promos on that end too, and I suspect that will continue into the fall. So I think we have a really good opportunity for great savings there. And then, of course, my favorite, the adjustable variable.
Yes, the variable.
Yes, I'm still seeing it at 0.99 on a 3-year, which is incredible, right? And a lot more companies have jumped into that prime minus 1.25, which means that your 5-year is 1.2%. Like we know that some movement that will happen there over that 5 years, but there's a really strong ways to strategize around that, and perhaps lock into a fixed later and really take advantage of that in the kind of short to medium term. Who knows what's going to happen with this election, which way that will go, and how that will politically affect the Bank of Canada and some of the things that they do. But that's something that we'll probably be looking into next year, right? It's nothing in the short term, right? And I think that's something that I want to talk about a bit this week, is that if you're really listening to the issues, and one of the big issues to you is the ability to purchase a home, I would say do not let anything that is being said now affect your short-term decision making, because we see it in politics all the time, right? We've talked about what would have been a more equitable stress test that should have come around last spring, and got canceled amid COVID, and now the stress test is more punitive. Right. Mm-hmm. And that was a promise from the government that that's something that they were going to do to make housing more accessible. There's people that are worried because one of the things that the Trudeau government has talked about is, maybe we need to stop the flips to make housing more accessible, and have a year. You can't do things for a year, and people are worried because that's their livelihood for several people. I would say do not stress about that yet. That is a political thing, and probably something that will never become policy, because, like Mark is talking about, in this wonderful older community in Calgary where people want to live, but want to live in a fully renovated house, that's what flippers do. They're bringing value and product back to the marketplace, and taking something that maybe a guy like Mark or I couldn't go in and take a house and strip it bare and wait for the 3 months or 6 months to get the work done, and be renting another place in the meantime, and then move into it, right? So I just think all of this policy, and take all of that with a grain of salt. Don't worry about things too much from either any of the platforms that you see. These are just very, very vague ideas that we won't be seeing, if at all, for at least a year, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's a very valid point. And we always talk about real estate as a long-term, from the investment perspective, it's a long-term play anyway. I mean, there are people they go in, they flip houses, but that's an immense amount of risk they're taking on, and let them worry about that stuff. If you're what I would call a retail purchaser, like 99, 95% of my clients would be, yeah, you're gonna live there for 5, 7, 10 years, maybe longer. So that's always the way I encourage my clients to look at things. So, but very valid points, and reach out to Jayden for interesting refinancing, home equity stuff. Jayden does all of that. And so we just always want to encourage people that there are other options. Sometimes the bank is the better option, as Jayden mentions, but he's fantastic at what he does. He's a great listener. So yeah. If you feel good about yourself, Jayden, now we can end the broadcast.
Yeah, you really pumped my tires there. I'm feeling great. So, thank you guys. It's good to be back. And I'm looking forward to taking all your calls and not being woken up at 2 a.m. now. So that's anytime you give me a call anytime, and I'll be picking up the phone.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Well, you have a great long weekend, and we will chat with everybody out there, whether you watch to hear live or later on Facebook or YouTube next week.
Thanks, guys.